fasten your tunics and polish your boots, 'cause it's Praetorian time, baby. Yes, sir!
Then guys, don't worry, I'm okay. I've taken my medication and I'm back to normal now. Sorry about that. But you probably gather that I am a Praetorian fanboy through and through. Always have been, always will be. And I really want to modernise my Praetorian forces using the new Cadians as a base for that. And I start off with the heavy weapons here. I'm putting some heavy bolters together. Initially, I'm just putting the two halves of the heavy bolters together exactly as they're supposed to go. But that's kind of where the conventional building ends, especially with the heavy weapons, because I do something quite different, as you'll see. So yeah, just gluing those two halves together as is. And then we need to think about the chassis. So I want these to be wheeled, you know, I want them to have that kind of classic kind of Maxim or Gatling gun kind of look to them. So I'm taking the kind of main kind of stand that goes underneath the body of the heavy weapon here, and I'm just clipping a couple of bits off of that to kind of bend it to my nefarious purposes. So I'll show you exactly the bits that need to go. The front stand here, just underneath that kind of larger bit of cowling, okay, just there, that goes, okay, snip and goodbye. And then we lose that kind of balancing rod or whatever the hell it is underneath, just up to this point here. And that's going to leave us with an important little nook that we're going to need later on, as you'll see. So we haven't kind of, you know, ruined the stand completely. That's still going to go together on the base of the heavy bolter as it should do. And indeed, you can magnetize if you want here, if you want to swap out heavy weapons. The ammo box is going to have to be put on differently. So first of all, I get rid of the lid and I save that. So that's quite important to this particular conversion. That gets put to one side because we're actually going to recycle that lid in a minute. And then we kind of put the ammo box together as it's supposed to go with the kind of front and back. You might just want to give it a little bit of a tidy up as you go. As you can see, that's what I'm doing here with the clippers. So this is all because the ammo box won't fit on as it's supposed to, or at least it won't look very good attached onto the side of the bolter, sticking out long ways, which means you're going to have to stick it on kind of more in a vertical feed to the side. You'll see what I mean in a second, and it really produces a much better aesthetic, especially as I'm making this wheeled chassis for the heavy bolters to sit on. I think you'll understand as this unfolds. But, you know, nothing to stop you attaching it in the conventional way if you wish, of course. It's your miniatures, you do what you want. These are 3D printed wheels that I got off of eBay, and I got several pairs of those, and they're about the right size for what I want. They're not too big and they're not too small, and they're quite nice. They're delicately detailed. They're nice looking objects. So I'm going to make a simple axle between the two wheels using a cocktail stick. That's actually a bit thinner than the receiver, so you'll have to do a little bit of jiggery-pokery just to glue that properly together if you're copying me here. Make sure the axle's nice and straight, make sure the wheels are nice and aligned with each other. At this stage, I put the heavy bolter onto the stand, onto the base, and then I kind of put that ammo box together as it's supposed to go now, minus the lid, of course, which we took off. And I just trim down the side of the heavy bolter where the cartridge ejector is, and that's going to produce a nice flat surface for me to attach that ammo box on. And you'll see what I'm up to now. I'm just going to put this on in like a vertical side feed fashion. Make sure the bullets are pointing the right way. Little details like that will annoy you if you're anything like me, if they're the wrong way around. That's what we end up with the heavy bolter here, okay? You'll notice we've still got a bit of stand sticking out the bottom, and that's for a reason. That's going to allow us to attach it to the axle and the wheels. I'm just demonstrating with this spare bit of cocktail stick, and you can see there it nestles really well in that little nook. So that's exactly where it's going to go on the axle. And it actually holds in there, look, it's perfectly sized for it. Okay, so a little bit of super glue here, and that's going to get glued into the center of the axle. Pay a bit of attention to alignment. You don't want it offset to one side if you can help it. Although, of course, the ammo box is a little bit of a, you know, a visual kind of cheat there. It'll look like it's off center, but it isn't. For the gunner, I'm using some spare pieces from the Field Ordnance kit. Now, you probably won't have these, but you can use spare infantrymen if you wish. But I'm using these guys because I didn't use them in another conversion. Go and check that out if you want. I made some kind of naval field guns for Warhammer 40,000. One of my favourite videos, actually. Go and check that out if you're interested. But that left me with a load of spare figures, and it's nice to be able to use them up. But I do understand, guys, you're not going to buy a Field Ordnance kit just to get hold of these for this conversion. This is just what I had lying around. So a little bit of tidying up of this figure here. You need to kind of trim off some of the stowage at the side, and then I use the standard heavy weapons firing arms. Make sure you get the corresponding arms, the right pair, and that kind of goes on nicely at the back there. That all glues together quite well. We are left with an awkward gap where the kind of triggers are, the handles, and I just cover that up with that lid that we saved from the ammo box. Just trim that down a little bit, like so, kind of leaving a little nub, and that's going to nestle in between a little gap that you'll see in a minute in between the hands, in between the handles that the guy's holding. So just here. So that glues on there, and that just hides that kind of ugly bit of, or should I say, lack of detail. Okay, now we've got the kind of the bipod thing, and that goes on, I believe, where it's supposed to go, and that just makes the whole thing look just, I think, a little bit more plausible. The little kind of crank handle goes on the left, and that goes underneath. You could probably attach this before you attach the figure if you're a little bit better organised than me. It's a bit easier, but it goes on there without too much fuss, and I think that just makes it look a little bit more realistic, you know, for Warhammer 40,000 anyway, you know what I mean? But that's quite a handsome looking thing. I just need to put a head on that miniature as well. And for heads on all my Praetorians in this project, I'm using Perry Miniatures British Colonial heads. They're about the right size, and there's lots of them in a pack. So they go really, really nicely on there. And it's hello to the Praetorians. There you go. Not bad, eh? And not too fussy as well, or complicated. So I'm really happy with how these conversions worked out. Like I said, you could magnetize if you wanted to swap weapons out. As it is, I tend to come away from magnetizing these days. Just showing you here that you can put the extra crewman on the base. He will fit on there if you want to do that. Personally, I don't like having multiple miniatures on one base. Never have done. So I'm going to make my loaders separate miniatures. That's just never really liked the whole diorama on a base thing. That's personal preference, guys. There you are. So this is a kind of a loader that I knocked up, and I did kind of various options with spare parts that I had from other Cadian kits. So there we go. Nice. Next, I set about converting some of these classic 90s Rattling snipers for my Praetorian force. I cut down the top of the heads really quite significantly with a pair of hobby snips, no finesse at all. And then I actually use these Victoria Miniatures heads, and I'm never going to use these in a conventional way. They're just not quite right for my style and aesthetic. But the helmets are pretty good. They're quite big, and they all fit the kind of the fat Rattling heads. So I shave the inside of the helmet down once I've removed the rest of the head until I can get a nice fit on top of the Rattling. And I just use a bit of super glue to fasten them because it's metal to resin, so super glue is the only way to do that, really. Just a little bit of jiggery pokery, and they turn out quite well. And these are my original Rattlings from way back in the 90s when I was like 11 or 12 or something. So that's nice to kind of recycle them and use them, and it's nice to have some classic miniatures in this force. So I'll show you those painted up towards the end of the video, guys, so stick around for that. With cavalry, I used the new Attilan Rough Riders, and that was a simple head swap. I used the Home Guard version of the heads from the Perry Miniatures box that I described earlier, and that has a nice spike on top of it, and it just, I don't know, it just looked a bit more ornate and a bit more appropriate for the cavalry. Of course, I paint these up, and I will show you those in more detail later as well. I then think about adding a bit of diversity to my infantry by using these Deathcore of Krieg bodies and the Perry Miniatures heads. I have to create a little bit of a step where the neck attachment is on the head. So I chop off the ball joint from underneath the Perry Miniatures head there with hobby clips, and then with some careful knife work create a little bit of a step. A bit cringeworthy watching this, I know, guys. I like to live on the edge, obviously, with the knife work, but you create a little bit of a step, and that kind of allows the head to slot on top of the collar area of the Death Corps body. And that's just a really nice, simple way of adding a little bit of diversity to the infantry by having those nice long greatcoats, and they look quite nice when they're all painted up. So I'm happy that I've got a squad that's just a bit different from the other ones, which is really nice. I then start working on these field ordnance kits to bring them round to the Praetorian theme. I use these Lego plastic wheels. I'll throw the component number up on the screen just in case you're interested. These are the same wheels as I used for the naval field gun conversion I did a while back. They go on the chassis really, really well. No conversion work required there. I then attach the other components to the kit on as they're supposed to go. I'm not actually going to mount these on bases because I don't like that myself, but obviously you do you. I use here a las cannon, and when I'm kind of fiddling around with it, I realise that because I've used taller wheels, it won't poke forwards over the gun guard properly. It's like poking up, and I don't think that's quite right for a las cannon because they're kind of direct fire weapons. They're laser weapons, aren't they? So I want to sort that out, and that's quite an easy fix. I just kind of shave a little bit of the structure off underneath the cannon, and that allows it then to sit nice and horizontally like it's firing directly at its target. I think that's, it's quite important for me. I notice things like that. So yeah, that's kind of job done with that. Moving on, I then kind of work with the kind of multiple rocket launch system from the field ordnance kit. But when I attach the wheels onto the chassis, I realise that they're too close together. They kind of almost hit the sides of the actual weapon system itself. It's doable, but it just doesn't look quite right to me. So I want to widen those wheels out a little bit. And I do that by using some beads. These little, I don't know what they're called actually, I've used them before on conversions, but I put those onto the axles and then kind of form a little pin with this Lego component that I can then attach the wheels on, on top of that. So it just widens the whole thing out a little bit and makes those wheels look a little bit more plausible, I would say. I mean, it's a small thing, but those are the kind of things I notice. I'm in no way a perfectionist, but there's some things that kind of irk me, and that was irking me, so I sorted it out. So here you see we've got a much wider set kind of wheel arrangement there, and that looks more appropriate for that particular weapon system. I go ahead and make lots of crew up from spare pieces. You can see a lot of these crew are made from the seated individuals from the field ordnance kit, standing on objects. I just kind of used what I had available, and they're okay, they're fine, they come out all right. And just for fun, I put a tow hook on one of my Taurox transports so I can actually tow a cannon behind it, using a little picture hanging eye and just cut down. Here I'm converting the Cadian standard bearer from the command set, because I don't really want the Cadian flag. It's a shame they didn't offer a plain flag in that set actually, but never mind. I trim that down and tidy up the flagpole in preparation to make my own banner, and that's reasonably straightforward work really. Just clip it off and then shave it down with a knife and smooth it out, and then we've got a plain pole that I can kind of work with and make a paper banner. The banner bearer himself goes together really quite basically, no real conversion work other than a simple head swap, once again using the Perry Miniatures head. I then create my own banner. Surprise, surprise, we've got to do a Union Jack for a Praetorian banner bearer, haven't we? I just cannot resist doing that, unfortunately. I do another design on the other side, which you'll see in the finished product later on. Basing was done quite traditionally using builder's sand, although I'm not going for goblin green bases. As much as I'd like to, I'm going to go for more of an arid theme with these. I think it's more appropriate. Painting was kept very simple indeed, guys. Traditional Praetorian colours, red tunics, blue trousers, seraphim sepia wash over all the equipment. This was all over a Wraithbone spray base. And I then kind of threw Agrax Earthshade over the whole thing afterwards. I didn't pick out every single buckle, every single strap, just because it's a horde army. I didn't really feel the need to do this, but I can always go back and tidy things up if I want to at a later time. Vehicles were kept very simple as well. That was just basically a Xandri dust spray with ample Agrax Earthshade wash afterwards. These are just basic Cadians, as you can see, with a simple head swap using the Perry Miniatures heads. The Ogrins that I make in as well for this army are not converted. They're just painted in much the same way as I'm doing here. So I hope you enjoyed, guys. I'll do a little bit of glamour shots for you now. Please like, share and subscribe if you've enjoyed the content. I really love doing these. Praetorians are definitely my pet army. They'll always be my favourites. They always were when I was younger, and they'll always continue to be. And I'm really sad that Games Workshop don't make official Praetorian miniatures anymore, and they're not about to, but never mind. Enjoy nonetheless. Take care, guys.